Thank you very much, Adam. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm an academic, and apparently I've got 5 minutes, which is going to be really difficult for me because it takes that long for me to tie my shoelaces every morning. But I'll do my best. I want to talk to you about the Back to Baselines in Circular Fashion and Textiles programme. I think, as we've heard today, the interest in EPR is very, very strong. And what we would hope, of course, is that if we were to have an effective EPR scheme, it would accelerate our progress as an industry towards circularity and perhaps towards many of those environmental targets that we all know about, not least net zero. But how can we measure our progress realistically if we don't have a baseline, if we don't really know where we are today? Right? How can you measure progress if you don't know the starting point? And there's a lot of inaccurate data and statistics out there. You know, if we talk about global emissions, if you look at our industry, you'll see figures quoted between about 1.8% and 10%. That's quite a large range. You know, the noise is very, very large, arguably larger than the signal. We've got a proliferation of eco-labels, so many, well over 100, that we have scientific evidence now to show that if you have too many, it'll damage your business. And it's extremely expensive to manage. We've got real confusion about what innovation can do today and what it can't do today and what it might be able to do in the future. We know we've got skills gaps, but we need to be specific about them. And we also need to know how business and consumer behaviour might react to the changes that we've been talking about. Typically long introduction there. Staring at the same slide, never mind. So what is the Network Plus? It's organised, it's a big collaborative network, £7 million, Adam mentioned it this morning, and it has 3 main elements, as you can see there. The first led by Northumbria University. These are all collaborations of academics with industry as well, including RAP and UKFT. And the first one's about improving data collection. And I mean data that's available so it can be scrutinised, not data hidden behind paywalls that can't be scrutinised. Scrutiny is not a bad thing. It means you have evidence because it can be refereed in my world. And then our role at Leeds is to then use the data that is available to establish research-validated baselines, data that stands up, and a baseline of where we are today. And Exeter is all about embedding the voices of the environmental science community. What is the real environmental impact of microplastics? What is the real environmental impact of our industry? What do they see on the ground? We need those voices now, not later. So going back to baselines specifically, I've tried to summarise it here in a slide. The baseline I'm talking about is across 5 key areas. So clearly one of them is around environmental target areas. We want to review the current baselines and metrics for the environmental impact of our industry, particularly in the UK. And then identify with KPIs where those improvements and the magnitude of those improvements, where they are and what those magnitude of improvements should be. So we know where we're going. And if we know where we're going and we know where we are today, we can measure some progress. We also want to, and we are doing this, we are also assessing and evaluating all of those current eco-credential standards, their pros and cons, their alignment with environmental targets, the extent to which they're helping and the extent to which they're not. And overcoming some of those massive oversimplifications that tend to come in, comparing fibre A with fibre B, instead of looking at things at a product level, which is much more sensible. And then really understanding the state of innovation. I'm an engineer, as many of you all know. A lot is said about innovation, and there are lots of innovations that we have today that could be implemented tomorrow if the playing field changed. There are also innovations available today that are going to take a long, long time to operationalise, so we need to be very clear about the difference. Skills gaps as well. Where should we be targeting development in skills? And then this other issue as well, which I know is one of Adam's favourite topics, Understanding cultures and behaviours, not just consumers but also our industry. Harnessing culture and behaviour for beneficial progress as well. It isn't all negative. So what would restrict or what could drive change in the future? And trying to create initiatives to harness that realistically. So that process has now begun. We've been working on this now for a little while. And the other thing that this necessarily does, of course, as you'd expect, is very clearly highlight gaps where we don't have any data. We don't have any data we can rely on. So we've reserved a significant budget, 700K, to fill those data gaps to the best of our ability, or to start to fill those data gaps. So these are projects that you could lead, you could contribute to, in partnership with, let's say, an academic researcher or not, depending on how you felt it needed to go. So those projects now are being operationalised. There's another call, I think, very soon, around November time. We'll be starting on the next batch of those. But it's all to do with generating data and evidence that will feed into this new baseline that will give us a really clear picture of where we are today. If you think your organisation can contribute to what we're doing, please let me know. We're already in contact through various means with about 500 companies, but we want to make sure we get this right. And all of the findings of this will be in the public domain. We're not going to make you pay to get access to the evidence. I do a lot of work in the healthcare industry. That's the practice. It's not evidence unless it's peer-reviewed and in the public domain, and then you can move forward with a bit more confidence. Thank you.